Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
This week, the Chad of all Chads, Chad Prather from the Chad Prather Show on Blaze joined me. It's a lot of fun to speak to a based cowboy about his book called Am I Crazy? We also talked about Colin Kaepernick, the ex-NFL player who recently compared football players being evaluated to a slave auction. Let me know how that works out. Totally the same thing, right? Chad and I really bonded over those stupid Peloton stationary bike and treadmill commercials too. Why would anyone pay to watch someone run through a desert on a video? Just use YouTube, okay? We also chatted about the Virginia election, where Democrats sent fake white supremacists, one of them was black, to support the now Republican governor. And of course, we talked about the drag queen halftime show at a high school football game, because what's a football game without teenage boys pretending to be pretty girls? We've all done it. I'd like to thank our sponsors at Atlas VPN, who have a special Black Friday deal with 86% off and 3 months for free. Atlas VPN is a tool that encrypts your data and virtual location. You connect to the VPN server, then your device is given a new IP and DNS address. The traffic is then encrypted and routed towards the VPN server. When that data and traffic arrives, the VPN server decrypts the info and allows the traffic to access the desired destination, giving you access to media and websites of the selected country all across the world. If you're an American, that means Canadian Netflix with all the latest holiday movies. That means BBC iPlayer with Top Gear. You can even get HBO to watch The Sopranos. That new movie's out. Bill Maher is on HBO too if you want to watch that. Click my special link in the description and get an early access to the Black Friday deal with 86% off, 3 months for free. Let's not forget our friends at Elevate.Farm. Elevate.Farm is a technology and IP-based indoor farm that produces traditional farm-grown equivalent products at wholesale market price without a global footprint. Go to Elevate.Farm for more information or follow both of the links in the description below. If you want to see the full version without ads, less Andrew, you can at rebelnews.com. Enjoy Chad Prather from Blaze, and we'll see you next week. Chad Prather is a comedian, musician, and host of the Chad Prather Show on BlazeTV. His book, Am I Crazy? An Unapologetic Patriot Takes on the Insanity of Today's Woke World is available everywhere now. The Chad of Chads joins me now. Chad Prather, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. It's good to be with you. Thanks for having me on. Hope all is well.
Thank you. You too. Love the relationship we've built with BlazeTV. Your book, Am I Crazy? I have it right here. It's not your typical book. I was looking through it the last couple days. It's a book of rants that are all a couple pages long, so I thought it was really unique, very digestible. And some of the rants include that I wrote down: Trump derangement syndrome, 16-year-old voters, the Peloton bike rant, which I want to touch on. But what inspired you to do this sort of format and write this book?
So what I did is I took some things, if people are reading through it, they may even, there's some things that I said or ranted on, maybe a year and a half ago. And they were things that people say, well, that's not relevant, like Trump's not still president or whatever. I kind of walk you through the principles that were of the stories that were going on at the time, but the principles remain the same. Some of the things may change substantially. But the principles remain the same. Let's face it, we're up against this, what we call this woke culture, right? And the progressive crazies that are out there. I asked the question, am I crazy? And quite honestly, we all must be, because the asylums are seemingly empty. The crazies are walking the street. Not only that, they're sitting in office and creating the policies. So how do we engage that? How do we bring common sense back into the public discourse? And so that's what I try to do, is bring out those underlying principles and help kind of arm people with a little bit of common sense so that they can engage this culture war, because let's face it, it's a cultural war to the death right now, especially when you consider cancel culture and all those things of that nature. They're really coming after us.
Yeah, I liked a lot of the way the chapters, if you can call them that, are written. Chad, explain to the people your problem with Peloton bikes, please.
Well, there's a lot of things that are there, but it's not a problem per se. It's just this culture that we've embraced of you don't have to get out anymore. You don't have to breathe fresh air. You don't have to do anything. The world has been brought to us, right? It's virtual. And you pay like what, $3,000, $4,000 for this bike to enter into this virtual world, right? I mean, people how much people pay for fitness. I probably have like 4 gym memberships right now. I don't go to the gym. I don't do any of this stuff. But we've been told that we don't even have to leave our house anymore. And so obviously with the pandemic thing and the quarantines and the shutdowns and the mandates that came along, that exacerbated the problem even more. A couple of weeks ago, whenever Facebook was down for 7 or 8 hours on that one particular Monday, I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go out and see human beings. Like, I'm going to go visit with people. So I went into a store, and I was like, man, people aren't even social anymore. They're so used to interacting with the world through a screen, right? And now you add in the masks that people wear everywhere. And so people don't even know how to interact socially, have a conversation, be congenial, be kind. It's really weird. And so this whole phenomenon that we've entered into where we relate to the world through a screen is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's become a point where sometimes people don't even realize that you can't even see each other's face. You go to smile or something at somebody, and it's just your eyebrows moving, and you're just like, I can't tell what this person's saying. Something I saw you talk about with Colin Kaepernick, and this hits me very close to home as a football fan and as a person who doesn't like liars. His Netflix documentary, among other things, compares the NFL draft to slavery. Which is fantastic, of course. And I want to show some of the truly moronic imagery he put in there, and I want to get your thoughts. So can we go ahead and play that, please?
What they don't want you to understand is what's being established is a power dynamic. Before they put you on the field, teams poke, prod, and examine you, searching for any defect that might affect your performance. No boundary respected. No dignity left intact. Come on, hurry. Look at that shake there. Look at this. Mr. Farmer got your bid. 30, James, 30 to you. 100. So, next one coming up, best float we got. 500, 600.
I don't even know where to begin with that. Chad, what's your initial reaction to this?
Well, first of all, they kind of take for granted that white people and Samoan people and I guess there's maybe some Asian players out there somewhere. I don't know. But, it's not a race-specific sport. The league minimum in salary, I think, is about $480,000 annually. So it's not like these people are being bought and sold and mistreated. The NFL and professional sports in particular they invest a lot of money. They invest a lot of money to make their teams competitive. To compare it to slavery is asinine, for one. The hypocrisy of it just absolutely ravages the mind and makes you think that I must really be crazy or stupid to absorb this pablum. Here's a guy, Colin Kaepernick. Somebody sent me a message on Twitter the other day and said, "What's your problem with Kaepernick?" They said, he was fighting police brutality. I was like, okay, if you believe that Colin Kaepernick was only about fighting police brutality, I got to bridge this. Here's a guy who made, $20 million off of Nike. He markets a pair of shoes that are like $125 a pair. Who in the world is going out and buying those Nike shoes? It's certainly not impoverished inner city kids that, according to him, have the highest chance of being abused and brutalized by the police. No, this is a money thing, right? This is when you elevate victimhood to a place of prominence, almost to deifying it, and it makes money with the victimhood. I keep reminding people. I said, if you don't really have pain, and we don't have a lot of pain. I mean, people go through personal struggles and they have their certain journey. We don't have a lot of pain in a very comfortable 21st century America. So you have to manufacture that pain and oppression and persecution. And that's exactly what he's profiting off of. He's creating a persecution that doesn't exist. I mean, to compare these multi-million-dollar athletes, their multi-million-dollar endorsements, the lavish lifestyle they lead, just by simply being able to throw and catch a ball. With slavery in 19th century America, it's absolute insanity. Hence the reason I wrote a book about that.
The problem I see with a lot of it is people act as if Kaepernick didn't make an actual statement when he started this a few years ago about what he meant. People try to make excuses for his kneeling when he literally said it's because of oppression from the government through the police on people of color, as he puts it. And then he came out with his pig socks and his communist t-shirts, and he didn't really make any other statements after that. He begged to be on football teams. They tried to get him on. Jay-Z tried to get him on a team, and he scoffed them off. He changed his practice, if you remember. He was supposed to do it in front of scouts. Then he changed the location to a high school last minute. It's all a show for him. Do you think anybody is getting their minds changed by Colin Kaepernick? Are they saying, maybe this is slavery in the NFL Combine. Maybe the jumping thing is a form of slavery.
I'll tell you whose mind it influences. It's the people out there, specifically the ones that I've witnessed, who take part in, say, like BLM parades or protests. It's, I was in one city last year, and a BLM protest was happening. They marched, several hundred people marched down the street. I think I saw 2 black people in the entire thing. Out of the hundreds, I think I saw 2 black people total. These are people that are the people with a lot of white guilt. Like, they feel this need to flagellate themselves to make up for the sins and scars of America. When you have this idea that America wasn't founded with the Declaration of Independence in 1776, but when the first slave or indentured servant stepped off the boat in Jamestown, Virginia, this is the insanity and the revisionists of history are having a heyday with this, creating this sense of victimhood that continues to promote this kind of nonsense. And so, again, to the degree that you can elevate your perceived sense of manufactured oppression, you can make money off of that. Look, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, they've done this thing for generations now with no end in sight. Various others, lawmakers like Cory Bush. There's folks who are put all of this to appear victimized. They're not victimized. Colin Kaepernick is the least of anyone. I mean, you want to talk about winning the lottery in life. Not only to be born, but his black parents didn't want him. So a white family adopts him, raises him up, gives him a great education, gives him all the opportunities. He winds up in the NFL. He's a percentage of a percentage. I mean, he won the lottery in life. This man's not oppressed at all. You want to use your platform to speak out against oppression and injustice. I'm for that. But that's not simply what Colin Kaepernick's about. And anybody with half a brain knows that.
Another thing that happened at a football field I want to transition to that I saw on your Twitter, actually, and so I wanted to ask you about it. This Vermont high school had a drag show at a halftime event, a halftime show, drag show, I guess, during a high school football game. Raises a lot of questions for me. Let's go ahead and show everybody what we're talking about if they haven't seen it, please, producer.
A first-of-its-kind halftime show for the Burlington High School homecoming football game. A drag ball hosted by the Gay Straight Alliance Club.
To include the LGBTQ community in a sport that has traditionally been very masculine, it's really good for us to be able to add kind of a gender-bending aspect to that. BHS students, along with students from South Burlington and Winooski, creating their own persona.
That first guy looked like Vladimir Putin. I don't know if anybody noticed that. But Chad, to ask both sides here, children or teenagers showing their sides of themselves, expressing themselves, or inappropriate and over-sexualized? What's your take?
Well, we definitely live in a society today and a culture which is hypersexualizing our children. We're seeing that. I always encourage people, if you have any opportunity whatsoever, if you can't do it right now, at least pull your kids out of the public school system. They are indoctrinating, brainwashing institutions that are after the minds and hearts of your children. You know, Hitler said, give them to me when they were young, and I will have them forever. And we see that happening in this humanistic Dewey and man system of socialist education here. Now we're hyper-sexualizing everything. And you know, there's obvious problems with having a drag show at a halftime high school football game. But my thing is, look, you know, for the gay community out there, and I'm not going to speak for them, but I ask a legitimate question. Does this truly represent the LGBTQ whatever community that's out there by having a flamboyant deal? I mean, this isn't a pride parade in West Hollywood, California. This is a high school in Vermont, right? The community of LGBTQ. I don't think that it does. I don't think by and large this is representative. So to me, it's more objectifying. It's almost like saying, you know what we're going to do? We're going to celebrate femininity. So we're just going to make all the girls are going to wear bikinis and dress up like Victoria's Secret models, and we're going to trot them out there. So we're going to say, this is women, women. To me, that's objectifying women, right? And I think it's the same way with the gay, trans, lesbian, bi community, whatever, this big long list, alphabet people, as I like to call it. We want to keep doing this. But in my opinion, it's not only hypersexualizing children and exposing them to things that are very, very dangerous, just like the other day in Orange County, Florida. They took a group of elementary schools, and they've done this apparently for the last 10 years, to a gay bar, gay restaurant as a civics lesson. That's their field trip. This kind of stuff doesn't make sense to me. And parents who approve of it, really should have their head examined, because it's going to lead down a path to a conclusion that you're really not going to like when it comes to fruition.
Yeah, my opinion is that the idea, what they're dancing around here, is that drag shows are inherently sexual. And that's what I want to say, which you sort of mentioned. That if you had a bunch of teenage girls in high school doing a twerking contest on the field, I'm pretty sure the parents would have a problem with that. But it's because it's boys and they're LGBTQ plus 2AA star asterisks, it's supposed to be fine. And what I wanted to ask you was, the men, they show the coach there. He says it's great, we've got allyship and all this stuff. What do you think is the motivating factor for adults, assumingly at least 40-year-old plus, to willingly go against their inherent logic and indoctrinate yourself willingly into this sort of doctrine?
Well, this is what happens when the woke mob takes over, and it's almost like you're collecting brownie points. Being woke and a social justice warrior, it's not like you're collecting social currency that you can spend at any time, because you're showing how open you are to everything and how open-minded. You're so open-minded that your brains are falling out. Look, we had Hazard, Kentucky the other day. Kentucky, of all places, they had boys who came out at a pep rally dressed like females provocatively, and they were lap dancing on the mayor and the teachers and coaches. This kind of thing. And look, heads are going to roll over that. But you wonder how much of this stuff is going on out there that's not being exposed by the media. They're not pointing it out. It's very dangerous how we're playing with this. The prefrontal cortex of a teenager is not developed. And it's not until about the age of 25. As the late, great Rush Limbaugh used to say, their heads are full of mush, right? So we've got to be careful with what we're allowing into the minds and hearts of the next generation. We know that the woke mob wants to do this. They want to take over a whole generation, make this the norm, because they're attacking the paradigm that is the greater worldview that's out there. Look, by and large, people are going to be statistically heterosexual. They're going to be statistically traditional in their values in many ways. And they're going to base, their belief system off of things in the way that they're raised. They're really trying to destroy our value system that's out there. And I tell people all the time, I'm a white heterosexual Christian male that burns up the ozone with a diesel truck, has a dog in the back seat, most of the wear a cowboy hat. So to the left and the progressives, I'm public enemy number one. I'm the problem if you go on Twitter and read anything on my profile. So to that, I say, let's remain unapologetic, hold on to your values. We saw what happened in the election yesterday in Virginia. People are tired of radicalism being crammed down their throat. They really are sick of it. And Americans, I believe, are truly starting to wake up to fight the nonsense.
Yeah, and you mentioned Virginia. I wanted to talk about that. Big elections this week. And of course, Youngkin won his race up against what I see as some really weird and gross tactics. So I want to show people the little thing the Lincoln Project did, this Democrat fundraising group, where they staged basically a bunch of white supremacists supporting the now governor. Can we play that?
Election day is Tuesday. All eyes are on the tight Virginia governor's race. And in the 11th hour, the Lincoln Project added tiki torches to the mix. But will they burn the candidate they were trying to help? On Friday, the anti-Trump group, the Lincoln Project, sent people holding tiki torches to a campaign event for the Republican candidate Glenn Youngkin. The men reportedly approached Youngkin's bus saying, "We're all in for Glenn." In a statement, the Lincoln Project said today's demonstration was our way of reminding Virginians what happened in Charlottesville 4 years ago, the Republican Party's embrace of those values, and Glenn Youngkin's failure to condemn it. If he will denounce Trump's assertion that the Charlottesville rioters possessed very fine qualities, we'll withdraw the tiki torches. Until then, we'll be back. McAuliffe's campaign condemned the stunt, and the Virginia
showed up at a Youngkin event posing as Charlottesville protesters. A group you're with, the Lincoln Project, owned that it was them, that they posed this way because they wanted people to remember. You're getting crushed by people on the right as a dirty tactic. Do you stand behind what was done, and is that being what you guys say you oppose?
No. Listen, every day I hear people pleading with the Lincoln Project to help show Democrats how to win, how to play hardball. You know, this is an example. The question here is not about some guys who showed up at a rally. It's why hasn't Glenn Youngkin denounced Donald Trump for saying that there were good people on both sides?
So we get caught staging white supremacists and saying we're all in for Youngkin. They get caught showing that it's operatives who work for that Democratic Party there in Virginia. No apology, no, we're sorry, we shouldn't have done that. It's why hasn't Trump denounced this, or why hasn't he denounced Trump saying something in 2017, which isn't actually what he said. If you have the internet, you can go check. But he needs to denounce this thing that everybody knows is a lie anyways. Chad, is there going to be any Democrat organization who actually has some accountability for their losses or anything that people seem to disagree with, which in Virginia, with stuff like critical race theory, transgenders in girls' bathrooms, there was a rape case there. Is there going to be any accountability coming in anytime soon?
You know, unfortunately, they keep doubling down. First, let me just also say, it's interesting to me that you cast a black kid as a white supremacist in that little stage thing. Always fascinating.
He's internalized it.
I mean, you know, I guess so. You know, it's like Clayton Bigsby, you know, the old Dave Chappelle character.
Yeah.
Member, but he's blind and didn't know he was black, right? It's kind of funny when they do stuff like that, but it's not funny. And, you know, it's interesting. You have MSNBC last night in the race as the election results were coming out and the ballots were coming in. They were, you know, they still wanted to bring up the fact that they said, well, you know, remember the fact that Donald Trump called Mexicans, you know, racist, or I'm sorry, murderers and rapists. And it's like, that's not what he said. He was talking about MS-13 gang members. And, you know, they portray this stuff because the further away from it you get, the more you can continue to that narrative, like saying, you know, there were good people on both sides. If you read the full context of what Donald Trump said in that press conference, it's not what he was saying. You got to take it all in there. And so, you know, it's the whole thing, you know, a text without a context is a pretext, right? And you're going to come to it with your own preconceived notions. And the further you get away from an event, you can just keep spinning that lie and people don't really remember. It's kind of hazy. It's like, yeah, you know, I kind of do remember Trump saying something like that. And so you can keep spinning this narrative way out of control. That's why I keep encouraging people, not only be unapologetic, but arm yourself with truth and common sense. Because when you build a house of cards on a bad fault line, and philosophically and logically, there's nothing really holding their argument narrative up, a little breath of common sense sometimes it causes that thing to tumble and fall in on itself. And we see over and over again, like Terry McAuliffe's candidacy, you give it enough room and it will wreck itself.
Yeah, for sure. Last question here, Chad. What kind of lessons can they take from this election victory? You saw even the Attorney General victory and a few other ones, a mayoralship in upstate New York. What kind of lessons can conservatives or Republicans or the lot take from this election that just happened, which was seemingly coming out of nowhere? You know they're in trouble when they bring Obama out to campaign, so maybe they knew something was coming. But what kind of takeaways can they take from a victory like this if you're a conservative party?
Well, there's two right off the top of my head. One, as I alluded to earlier, Americans, conservatives, patriots, they're waking up and they're seeing that, one, you don't mess with our kids. You know, when Merrick Garland calls parents domestic terrorists, when this loud racist situation happens, you don't mess with our kids, these school boards, these city councils, all these things. You poke that bear long enough, and you realize the silent majority doesn't stay silent for long. The other thing that I remind people from this just in the last few hours since this election now is that the establishment Republican Party, in my opinion, is dead. It's dead. We need to stop trying to wake that beast up. It's dead. It's just as bad as the Democrat Party. Forget the extremists. I'm talking about the establishment. The establishment is dead. We're seeing people that are spending less money to get elected. We're seeing people who are telling the truth, being honest, not pandering to political party lines, and they're winning elections because they're patriots. And they're coming out here and they believe in getting the government out of our life and letting people live and be free. And people they're waking up to that message. And the spirit of 1776 is quite alive in America today. I truly believe that.
And as my friend Matt Brevner told me today, you can't eat social justice, you can't eat rainbows and stuff like that. It doesn't put food on the table. Chad Prather, the Chad Prather Show, BlazeTV, Am I Crazy? The book. It's hilarious, Chad. This format, I think it's kind of revolutionary. I enjoy it. It's just like better than tweets on paper. I don't know. It's something about it that I like. Thanks a lot for joining me. Have a great time down there. I know that you're doing the right thing. I like your content. Keep up the good work, please. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks for watching another episode of Andrew Says. If you want exclusive content, go to rebelnewsplus.com where we talk about topics we're not allowed to show you on social media. Danger.